Say, what value do you have in the sight of your Lord except for your dua, except for your supplication? Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma said, meaning your iman, your faith is what gives you value in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sanctity in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that hurma that is established for the believer, that sanctity is a baseline sanctity the scholars mention. And I want you to think about the moment Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam standing in front of the Kaaba on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah in his only Hajj after his pilgrimage or after his hijrah to Al-Madinah, Hajjatul Wada', the farewell Hajj, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam looking at the Kaaba and addressing the Kaaba, and he's not really addressing the Kaaba, he's addressing the people that hear him addressing the Kaaba. How sacred are you? And I'm going to paraphrase the hadith for the sake of time. How sacred are you? How beautiful are you? How pure are you? But the sanctity, the hurma, the sanctity of the believer is greater in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than you. Their honor, their property, their lives. SubhanAllah, can you imagine a person meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment with the crime of hadmul Kaaba, of destroying the Kaaba? How many people will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the crime of destroying the honor of a believer, of harming people with their tongue? Because this tongue breaks down people worse than what would happen if someone was to physically break down the Kaaba. And we will be accountable. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that. Allahumma ameen. That's the baseline. That's not the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not the muhsin, the person who excels. That's just the mu'min, the sanctity of the believer in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we talk about Palestine, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liberate Al-Aqsa. Allahumma ameen. The sanctity of our mother who is being kneed in the face by a settler scumbag on her way to Masjid Al-Aqsa and hanging on, holding on to her mushaf, holding on to her dhikr, the sanctity of our uncle, the sanctity of our father, the sanctity of our brother, our sister, the sanctity of our child in Al-Aqsa under the boots of occupation is greater than the sanctity of Al-Aqsa itself, the sanctity of a believer. And as much as a person increases in iman, in faith, then that sanctity increases in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. Until it reaches Man aada li waliya faqad aadhantuhu bil harb. Whoever takes a wali of mine, someone who is very beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a friend of Allah, may Allah make us amongst them. When you say وَتَوَلَّنِي فِي مَنْ تَوَلَّيْتَ, you're asking Allah for it in your witr. Take me as a wali. Take me as a friend of yours, O Allah.